Tōku katoa, everybody. It's very nice that you're all here. Obviously, there could be more people, but we're really glad that you've all made it tonight. I'm Nicola Hoggard, the Director of New Zealand Christians in Science, and this is our last public lecture for the year. You can see that the university is winding down around us. So thank you for your support, those of you who have been here before. Thank you for your support during the year. And of course, we're going to end on a very high note. We're very grateful to Professor Dodgson for coming up from Victoria for this talk. And apparently he hates travel, so we're even more grateful that you made it up here. Should you need the toilets, they are the men's on that side and the women's on that side. Okay, so Neil Dodgson is a professor in the Faculty of Engineering and Dean of Graduate Research at Victoria University of Wellington. Prior to this, he spent 27 years at the University of Cambridge, working across mathematics, engineering, and computing, all of which are crucial in the rise of artificial intelligence. Neil has been active in the church throughout this time and has spent much time thinking about the ethical dimensions of technology and how it interacts with his Christian faith. Neil has a substantial record of academic publishing in computer graphics, imaging, and display technology. Over the past 5 years, he has been invited to speak multiple times on AI, Christian faith, and what it means to be human. I also discovered just an hour ago that he also teaches undergraduates how to read and how to write. So that's a wonderful thing to be doing. So please welcome Neil.
Kia koutou katoa. Welcome to you all. Thank you all for coming out to this cold Auckland night. I'm told it's cold. This is warm for Wellington. And welcome to those of you who are joining online. It's lovely to see you here too. So artificial intelligence. It's a disruptive technology. It is making us question what we thought we knew. It's allowing us to do things with computers that we thought they would not be able to do. So it's been said that artificial intelligence will change the way human beings deal with one another. Is that just hype? Or is there something to it? So what is artificial intelligence anyway? What's going on under the hood in these artificial intelligence systems? Where's this disruptive technology likely to take us? And how does the church respond to this stuff? So that's the things we're going to cover in the next 35 minutes or so. Artificial intelligence has been around since the 1940s. It's only in the last decade that it's really taken off with the development of deep neural network techniques that are inspired by the structure of the human brain. Today, artificial intelligence is used to diagnose cancer, it's used to recognize speech, and it's used to identify people in the crowd. And in the next decade, it will go on to do much more than that. So to get things going, let's start with the philosophical. Can a machine think? Now, that's a question quite a lot of people come to these talks with. And G.K. Chesterton wrote in 1910, before the development of computers, he wrote, "A machine only is a machine because it cannot think." Now, you could interpret that statement in two different ways. Either what he's saying is, a machine could never think. You have to be human to think. Or he's saying, if a machine could think, it will become something more than a machine. And both of those are interesting interpretations. So let's dig into this a bit more. So artificial intelligence has made massive strides in the past decade, and particularly over the past 18 months. So we now have systems like ChatGPT, which you've heard of, that are doing things that we thought were beyond the capabilities of computers. So ChatGPT is writing essays that would get reasonable grades if they were submitted by a high school student. DALL-E is a system that's creating artwork that faster than a trained graphic designer can. And Google's Lambda is a really interesting case because Google's Lambda convinced this guy, Blake Lemoine, one of the engineers, that it was alive, that it was sentient. So after exchanging chat with Google Lambda, Blake Lemoine said, if I did not know exactly what it was, which is this computer program that we built recently, I would think this was a 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid that happened to know some physics. Now, Lemon was laughed at by experts in the field at the time. He was sacked by Google. But those same experts are convinced that though he's wrong now, that the machines are approaching consciousness and that it's just inevitable that machines will become sentient. But there are other experts who are equally convinced that there is no evidence whatsoever of sentience, and there's quite a lot of evidence against it. So Professor Edgar Dijkstra, who's one of the founding fathers of computer programming, put it like this. He said, asking if a computer can think is like asking if a submarine can swim. And what he means is that though the machine is doing something that's akin to what a human can do, it isn't actually the same thing at all. So where we're at is the experts don't agree. And so where does that leave people like us who are not experts? So what we do, if you're not an expert, is you tend to go where the movies take you, which is up here. So unless you're actually in the tech industry like I am, artificial intelligence does tend to bring up images of Terminator, thinking robots that will take over the world. And that is one extreme of what might happen, but it's not what's happening now. It's not where things are currently taking us, and it's not actually very helpful. So let me try to be helpful. Let me give you some brief history. Artificial intelligence actually goes back 70 years to the earliest days of computing. This is the world's earliest stored program computer that actually worked, built in the 1940s. Back at the start of computing, when they were building machines like this, there was great hope for creating artificial intelligence really quickly. The thinking amongst the computer scientists was, if a human can do something, surely it will be easy to get a computer to do the same thing. It turns out that people are much more complicated than computer scientists expected. For example, understanding natural spoken language, which is what you're doing right now, you're understanding what I'm saying, turns out to be something that's really hard. But most kids can do it. So the computer scientists thought, well, children can do this, so it must be easy to get a computer to do this. And they thought we'd have working speech recognition by the 1960s. It turned out to take a bit longer than that. It took 50 years longer than that. And it's only in the last 20 years that we've got computers who can reliably recognize speech, 50 years after we expected to be able to do it. But today we can make systems like Siri, like Alexa, that can recognize human speech and can do straightforward tasks for you, like play your favorite song. And they can use an internet search engine to go off and answer more complex questions. But these systems are not at the point where they could engage in intelligent conversation, like, say, Christopher Luxon's latest press conference or about New Zealand's recent dismal performance in the rugby. So in the early days, we had high hopes. But in the early days, we actually started by getting computers to do what they do well and what humans find difficult, which is to do symbolic manipulation, the sort of thing a mathematician does. So we got computers to do things like play chess. And that's something most of us find difficult. And we've been extremely successful at getting computers to play chess. It's easy to get a computer to play chess because there are very straightforward rules to how the pieces move. There are really clear guidelines for what constitute good and bad moves, and a computer can do enormous amounts of calculations looking at all sorts of options. So computers have been able to beat humans at chess for decades, but the chess-playing computer is just a box of tricks doing what we told it to do. You can't hold a conversation with it. It can't do anything other than play chess, and it hasn't stopped human beings from wanting to play chess. Now, today, we're well beyond this. We're well beyond computers playing abstract games. And the reason AI is in the news now, and the reason I'm talking about it, is because it can do so much more now, and it has so much promise to do even more than that. So after decades of struggle with AI systems, there was a big breakthrough in computing about 15 years ago in how we do AI. The computers have got big enough and fast enough to allow us to try something that turned out to actually work. So the new technology that was developed about 15 years ago is called deep learning. I'm very proud of the person that thought of that term because it sounds so impressive. So deep learning is a swanky term for something quite simple. What we do is we build computer systems that mimic the way we think the human brain is constructed, which means there's lots of simple artificial neurons, they're the green blobs, and they are connected, they're in layers, and each layer of neurons is connected to the next layer by hundreds and hundreds of connections. So, and each layer communicates to the next layer through those connections. So the deep in deep learning actually just means that the network's many layers deep. It's nothing to do with it being philosophically deep in any way whatsoever. The learning part comes from how you use this, how you train this. So you train it to do a job by feeding it an enormous amount of data. So we give it lots of different inputs, and for each input, we tell it what the correct output should be. So as we do this, the system then tweaks its internal neurons and the connections between them so that it tweaks them based on the difference between what it actually output and what it should have output. So it's been told what the correct output should be. It shoves out some output, and then it tweaks its internal connections based on the difference between those. For example, we could give it input a photograph of an animal, such as the one and pictures here, and we tell it whether the output should be a cat, a dog, a goat, a bear, or whatever. Now, when you start with one of these systems that's untrained, it just spits out an answer completely at random. It's just guessing. But every time it gets it wrong, it does tiny internal adjustments to get a higher probability of being right next time it sees something similar. And if it does get it right, it does tiny internal corrections to ensure that next time it's got a higher chance of getting the same sort of thing right. So we basically build a prediction machine. It predicts what the output should be based on the input and all the training that's embedded in it. With enough training data, you can get a deep neural network to give the right answer to inputs it's never seen. So it's learned how to solve this particular problem. So when it's deployed, it can see, it can have a picture it's never seen before and get the right answer most of the time. Now, to do this, you need an awful lot of training data. To do this particular job, you literally need millions of images of animals, all labeled with what the correct animal should be to get it to get the right answer. But once it's trained, it can be used repeatedly to do its job. And this idea generalizes to all sorts of other problems. For example, the stock market is an example. The stock market has for years been run by AI systems. They've been trained on stock market data to try to make the best possible trades. So these photos show you the New York Stock Exchange 30 years apart. On the left is in 1987, with humans doing all the trading. I mean, they've got computers, but the humans are making the decisions. On the right is the New York Stock Exchange in 2017. By 2017, the stock exchange is essentially a stage set for TV broadcasts about how the stock market's doing. You don't need human beings on the floor because the computers are doing all the trading. So AI systems are trading stocks with other AI systems, and they do have fail-safes in there because there was a really nasty case early on where they all decided the market was going to crash and they took the market down. And some human beings went in about half an hour into this happening and went, we'll just turn off the AI system for a little while, let it reset itself. But it's not just the stock market. Insurance companies, banks, and other financial institutions are increasingly using AI systems to make decisions about who gets a loan, how much your insurance costs, and what risks should be taken. So going beyond those examples, which are currently happening, you could imagine a system that works in court, for example, where you have an AI system that weighs the evidence, decides who's guilty and who's innocent, decides how much the fine should be or how long the jail sentence should be. And that sounds a bit scary and maybe something we wouldn't want to think about. But maybe it is a step too far, but that is the sort of thing you could train an AI system to do. Okay, so that's a bit of a negative. Let's think about the positives. What's AI going to benefit us? How are we going to get benefit out of AI? I'm going to give you 3 examples of things AI could do that would benefit us. So first of all, education. Imagine if we could have personally tailored education for every child in the country, taking each child at the right pace developing each child to their fullest potential, building on their strengths, providing them strategies to get them through their weaknesses. To do that today, you would need literally an army of human tutors to help each child, but that would be extraordinarily expensive. But we could try to build AI systems to do this. Now, sure, such a system could only go so far. You would still need humans to teach socialization and empathy and relationships. But imagine the change to our society if we could really personalize education. We know that students who have personal tutors do better than those who don't. We also know that the current AI systems that are rolled out for education are pretty much rubbish, that are really poor. So why is that? And what would we need to do to make them better? So to get AI computer systems to actually act as personal tutors that were any good, the computer system would have to respond to the child's state of mind rather than just the bare responses with clicks on the mouse on the keyboard. That is, the computer would have to respond to emotions. And how does a human tutor do that? A human tutor picks up on subtle cues of tone, of voice, of facial expression, of body language as the child's slumped going like this, whatever. So AI systems have been built that are already able to detect these things to some extent. So imagine if we could do this, if we could have a computer system that allowed us to train every individual human to their fullest potential. What we do is we pick up those who currently fall by the wayside, and we develop our best and brightest far beyond what's possible with a mass schooling system. And that would be of enormous benefit to all of society. So that's education. Then there's medicine. The New Zealand AI Forum tells us there's immense potential to save both lives and money through AI systems. We've recently developed AI systems that are able to diagnose melanoma, and they can diagnose melanoma better and more consistently than any human expert. And we did this exactly the same way. We trained that system to recognize animals. We have lots and lots of photographs of melanomas, of suspected melanomas, and we have lots of evidence of which ones are malignant and which are benign. So you can throw all that into a system to train it. And if you do that with a deep learning system, it can learn to recognize cancerous spots better than any human doctor could ever hope to do. Now, it is a very specialized skill, but it demonstrates there is great potential to combine the best of what a computer can do with the best of what a human can do. There'll be computers that are brilliant at diagnosing cancer, and then there are humans who are brilliant at helping other human beings to cope with being diagnosed with cancer. So to sit beside someone who's ill, to bring comfort, hope, and love. So you could have a future in which we combine the best of what the computers can do and the best of what humans can do to the benefit of everyone in society. So my third example is from the creative world. You've heard I work in computer graphics, and that's where I'm comfortable. I actually do a bit of amateur design myself. I produce advertising material for the voluntary organizations I'm part of. And that means I've got expertise in the use of tools like Photoshop. So rather than create some images myself, I asked Google's deep AI image generator to make me some drawings in various styles completely from scratch. So I was speaking in Melbourne a few months ago. So I typed in a unicorn in front of Scott's Church in Melbourne, and it gave me these three pictures amongst the pictures. So these are in three different styles. It's a unicorn in front of, this is not Scott's Church in Melbourne. It doesn't look like that, but it's in front of a church. Now, none of these is perfect. But the point is that all of these are way better than I could do. And it took less than 5 minutes. So this is a real boon for designers who are looking for cheap, bespoke artwork that's not copyright that they can use. And it also could be useful to artists to say, let's try to get a bit of inspiration. Yes, oh, that's an interesting idea. Let me do that better. Okay, so those are positives, but there is a dark side to all this. There's a very serious dark side. So these examples on the screen are what I can do with a cheap and freely available AI system. There are more powerful AI systems that can do a better job. There are software systems out there that can produce images and video that have one person's face pasted onto somebody else's body, like these pictures of Barack Obama and Angela Merkel enjoying a day at the beach. And they're able to do this in ways that it's impossible to distinguish from reality. So these two images are not actually real, in case you were wondering. Images like this are called deep fakes. The deep, again, comes from deep learning. Deep, the fake, they're from deep learning, deep fakes. We just love our cool names. So going beyond these images, which are fairly benign, in 2017, the University of Washington demonstrated the first faked videos of President Barack Obama saying things that were actually voiced by an actor. It looked really impressive. And things have moved very rapidly in the 7 years since then. You can now download software to your own computer to put whatever words you like in the mouth of anyone you like. So that means you cannot trust any video or any image that you find online. Like these ones, they may not be real. Now, of course, it's actually true that we've been able to fake stuff for years, video, images, and films. I'm old enough to have gone and seen Star Wars when it first came out in 1978. And I didn't really believe that those spaceships and those alien creatures were real. I knew they were fake. So we've been able to fake that stuff for ages. And when I see a fashion magazine in a supermarket, I don't believe the model on the cover actually looks like that photograph. I know that Photoshop has been used extensively to create a sort of more perfect version. But the problem is that the technology to do this has become so much more powerful and so easily available, it's possible for anyone to fake anything. So this is the dark side. You may remember the news story in January this year that fake pornographic images of Taylor Swift was circulating on the internet. More recently, I heard that a group of 14-year-olds, high school kids in Spain, downloaded an app from the dark net that allowed them to create naked photographs of their classmates, which they then circulated around the school. So imagine what that would be like as a 14-year-old girl. Your classmates are circulating naked photos of you based on normal everyday photos of you with clothes on, taken on a phone, but with all the clothes removed by the software. So even though you know that these photos are faked, even though you know that you never posed naked, it's still your face in the photo. So some of the victims pretty justifiably refused to go to school because they could not face the shame. So 14-year-old boys, yes, there were boys, have easy access to this sort of technology. They can make it work and they can use it to bully and shame their classmates. And more recently, it's gone beyond that. There are kids who are now using it to extort money from their classmates. So that's the brave new world we appear to have created for ourselves. So that's the problem for me and my colleagues because I work in computer graphics and I've worked with some of the researchers who have developed the original technology that's now been subverted and corrupted to do these appalling things. So what can we do? So a group of us met in 2018 at the major international computer graphics conference, which was in Vancouver that year, and we discussed the problem of deep fakes. And we had the world experts in the room. So we had helped to create the problem that we could see coming down the line. So could we help to solve it? And the answer is no. In 2018, we were confident that with the technology we had, we could detect if something was a deep fake or not. At the time, it was possible to find the errors in the images that showed that they've been faked. We're now 6 years on, and we all agreed at the time it was only a matter of time before the technology got good enough that there would be no mechanism by which you could tell a fake image from a real image. And we have got there. In fact, we're now in a world where it's no longer just pasting bits of images together to create something. We can create things that don't exist at all. So these two pictures are absolutely gorgeous photographs. These are completely artificially generated. These are not real human beings. These are not real photographs. These people don't exist. This is all just out of the deep learning technique. And one of the things we discovered is that deep learning techniques tend to produce people who look like models because it's been fed lots of pictures of people who look like models and sort of learned that this is what people want. So that's not good. Then beyond my little field of imaging, there's the challenge that artificial intelligence is going to take our jobs. Do you recall, well, none of us are old enough, but there was a revolution in automation when jobs were replaced by machines. So machines like this. And these sorts of machines are absolutely fantastic for society long term. But this revolution was dreadful for the people who lost their jobs short term. So the first 60 years of the Industrial Revolution were dreadful for people like skilled weavers, whose skilled jobs were replaced by machines operated by unskilled labor. And yes, that is a girl on the right who today, in today's society, would definitely be in school, working in the factory. So unskilled labor replaces skilled jobs. So AI is going to replace other types of skilled jobs, perhaps the job you do, or it will change jobs beyond recognition. There are some commentators who've estimated that the job losses will be as high as 50%. That's 50%. That's half of jobs. And that would make a massive societal change. So call centers will be replaced by AI systems with fake empathy. Truck drivers would be replaced by autonomous vehicles. And just think about how many truck drivers there are out there, and what job could a redundant truck driver then go on to do? It's quite a specialized skill. Doctors could be replaced or augmented by AI decision-making systems that don't get tired, they don't make mistakes, but they don't understand what it means to be human. So that is one view of the future. So how would the church respond to this phenomenal shift in society? So if we go back to the Great Depression, in the USA, unemployment was running at 25%. And we know that caused a massive upheaval in society. How would you cope with an unemployment rate of twice that, of 50%, when so many jobs have vanished that many people have no hope of ever getting a job? Now, some people argue that new jobs will be created, but it will not be at anywhere near the same rate as jobs are lost. So what could the church do to shape a society that's robust to such dramatic changes? Now, that's all very negative. So a more positive view is given by the New Zealand AI Forum. They estimate, yes, there will be job losses, but the job losses will probably be, maybe as low as 10%. And the losses will be spread over many, many years. That still equates to hundreds of thousands of people losing their jobs. So whichever figure is right, it looks like we're going to move to a society where there's less work to go around. And the church could take a lead in imagining and creating the sort of society that we'll become. So why am I saying the church? Well, because the church is a place where we believe in the importance of society, where we believe that every individual has value because they're a person, not because of what they contribute to the gross domestic product. So the church is a place where you have a solid rock to stand on in the face of the dramatically shifting sands of technology, society, environment, and political change. Okay. But on this little route through the depressing side of AI, there are other issues to consider. There's enormous potential for AI to be used to keep track of us all. The Chinese government has already attempting to develop a social credit system which uses AI methods to calculate each citizen's social credit score. The score will determine what rewards or punishments a citizen will receive based on their economic and their personal behavior. So some types of punishment that they're talking about are bans on any long distance travel and exclusion from certain jobs. And all this is made possible by artificial intelligence combined with surveillance systems. Now that sounds horribly big brotherish because it is horribly big brotherish. And we could be sitting here thinking, well, aren't I lucky that I am not living in China? But we in the Western countries already have something similar. We have the credit score that your bank uses to determine whether it should give you a loan. We have the loyalty card at your supermarket or your airline. We have likes and ratings on Facebook and Uber and Amazon. This is called surveillance capitalism. We are caught up in a system where information about our lives is readily handed over to these impersonal and powerful corporations. These entities have access to our fragile and finite humanity without having made any real effort to make any sort of relationship with us whatsoever. So we haven't really given them any permission. We just have to give them this stuff or not engage at all. So they can exploit our vulnerabilities to help us or for profit or for coercive control. So our lives become the raw material for products designed to make us into what others want us to be. And that strips us of our dignity as people made in the image of God. Really, it transforms us into nothing more than marketable commodities. So with these examples, you can see that AI can be part of the problem, or it can be part of the solution. AI can be used to influence society both for good and for ill. It can be harnessed to increasingly convince people to be passive consumers of goods and services and entertainment, but it can also be harnessed for the greater good. So, how do we respond to all this? Now, all the AI systems, these generative AI systems, they all work through the deep learning process. That is, all of them are trained on very large amounts of data. In the case of ChatGPT, trillions of words of data. But there's a problem here. One of the challenges of this is that there's no way of knowing why the system makes the decision it does. The decision-making process is encoded in hundreds of thousands of connections between these little neurons. And you can no more find out how it made the decision than I could work out what you're thinking by slicing your head open and looking at your brain. So what we've done is we've built these amazing black boxes, making decisions based on the training data, but no way of getting it to tell us how it made that decision. That is one of the big challenges of AI today, is how do we get a system to explain how it made a decision? And if you think, oh, come on, that can't be hard, just remember that's what we said about speech recognition in the 50s. And also, just think of the number of times you've made a decision and then somebody's challenged you on it and you've invented a reason because you didn't really have a good reason. So what do you do if the AI system turns you down for insurance cover? What do you do if it decides that your child can't go to the high school they set their heart on? What does it do if it decides your parent is not a suitable candidate for that life-saving treatment? How do you respond as a community when the AI system tells us things that are unpalatable? And those are questions that we are going to have to face as a society. If computer says no, how do we deal with that? We've had that in the past, but it's going to be much, much worse in the future. Now, I am certainly not the first to think about this. In the Vatican City, the Pontifical Academy for Life has been working with Microsoft and IBM and others to consider the ethics of artificial intelligence. And they've come up with a straightforward statement of principles that they think should be used as a guide in the development of AI. So these principles come straight from the heart of the Christian belief that human beings are intrinsically valuable, that we need to respect the dignity of the human person, and that this applies to all humans, not just to a privileged elite. I hope Elon Musk is listening. The principles are: one is transparency. The AI system must be understandable. Two is inclusion. The AI system must not discriminate. Three is accountability. This is a good one. There must always be a human who takes responsibility for what the AI system does. Four is impartiality. The machine must not follow bias or create bias. Five is reliability, which is sort of obvious, I think. And six is security and privacy, also pretty obvious. So why did they feel led to do this? And it's because of an observation popularized by A.C. Grayling, who said, anything that can be done will be done if it brings advantage or profit to those who can do it. So people will build AI systems if they see advantage or profit in it. Now, perhaps it would be fine if we knew the AI system was completely unbiased and completely trustworthy, and that the AI system was doing things for our own good. But that sounds to me like a fundamentalist religious position, that you trust in the almighty computer for it cannot be wrong. I suggest that's a remarkably naive position to take if anybody actually took that seriously. Because, as Grayling says, people will use AI to make profit or to give them advantage over other people. So the principles are there to try to allow regulators to say, you cannot let people just have free rein to do whatever they want with AI. Now, we can discuss later whether these 6 principles are good principles and whether they might be other principles we could use. But from what I've told you already, you can already see there might be some problems with these principles. For example, on point 1, transparency, deep learning AIs are not transparent. We do not know why they make the decisions they do, and we cannot find out. And on point 4, which is about impartiality, we already have AI systems that have demonstrable bias, and we computer scientists have faced enormous problems with trying to remove bias. So I want to now circle back to that question I started with, which is, so can a computer think? What are these computer systems that we're talking about thinking? Are these rules here only about computers that think, or is this actually more general? And this is indeed more general. So do these systems have any sort of intelligence at all? So to answer that, I need to talk about narrow AI and general AI. Now, narrow AI, also called weak AI, is the sort of artificial intelligence in all my examples so far. It's a computer that can do a particular job that you'd otherwise think you need a human to do. For example, diagnosing cancerous spots or editing a photograph. We already know how to build these narrow AIs, but we also know that these narrow AIs are not thinking. They're just doing what they're programmed to do. General AI, the one on the right, or strong AI, this is an artificial intelligence that can deal with general problems. It uses its knowledge of the world and its intelligence to handle novel situations. An advanced general AI could hold a decent conversation with you. It could talk about the rugby last weekend, for example. It would be a thinking machine. It would be self-aware. That's a general AI. We've never built a general AI. We don't know if we can build a general AI. But most computer scientists do think it's just a matter of time before we have general AI. They believe that we will one day, and within the next couple of decades, create a computer that can think, and then one that can think better than a human, and then that one will design an even better computer, and so on, better and better computers, leaving humans completely out of the loop, with hyper-intelligent computers doing whatever it is that hyper-intelligent computers want to do. That's where some people think we are heading. There are, of course, other people like Dodgson who says that's nonsense. And in fact, some of the recent pushback on generative AIs like ChatGPT is there are people, experts in the field, who are now going, well, that's been really interesting. These things can do lots of fun things, but we're no closer to getting a general AI out of this than we were before. This looks like it's a dead end for getting general AI. Let's think about other ways to do that. Okay, so that's all been a lot of information in a rather short space of time. So I'm going to finish the talk by giving a few thoughts on that last part of my title slide, which is, how do you respond to all this as Christians? I've already touched a little bit on this, but let's talk about whether the Bible tells us anything about AI. And when I've looked into it, the question is rather, what does the Bible tell us about being human? A lot of the AI debate is driven by technologists who seem to have a rather limited view of what it means to be a human being. These technologists work on the assumption that the human brain is just some sort of biological computer, and it's just a matter of time before we can replicate that in an electronic computer. So one thing the church can do is offer a broader view of what it means to be human. So two things here. We believe that humans are made in the image of God. That's in Genesis chapter 1. And we believe that humans are meant to live in community. That's in Genesis chapter 2. And we believe that each human is intrinsically valued by God and is fulfilled in relationship with God. That's a very different position from you being just a biological computer. In fact, there are many aspects to being human. We are physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and social beings. The AI debate has focused almost exclusively on the intellectual. And that puts it on rather shaky ground. Humans are much more than just intellectual beings. So for an AI to be truly human or truly like a human, would it need to be embodied? That is, would it need to have a physical body that determines how it can act, that limits what it can act on, and determines what it can perceive? Would it need to be embedded in a society? That means, doesn't AI to actually develop as a proper intelligence, need to grow up like a child? Now, we say often that it takes a village to raise a child. You cannot raise a child in isolation from other human beings. If you try to do that, you create a monster. Social relationships between human beings are super important. Our minds are actually developed in community through relationship. So would an artificial intelligence need to be part of a community to develop? And what on earth would that look like? Emotional, could an artificial intelligence have true emotions? For example, as a scientist, I can take a flower and tell you exactly how it grows or what all the parts do, how the light reflects to make the colors. But none of that tells you anything about my emotional response to seeing a pretty flower. And that's for spiritual. What is the spiritual dimension of an AI? Does the Bible have anything to say here? So I'm going to go right back again to Genesis 1. In Genesis 1, the Bible says that humans are created in the image of God and created to have dominion over all the earth. Now, both of those are contentious ideas in the modern world, but let's unpack what this means for the AI debate. So Christians believe that humans are made in the image of God. So does this mean that when we try to make a computer with the image of a human, we're hence trying to make a machine in the image of God? That seems like heading down the same route as in the story of the Tower of Babel, and that didn't end well. But let's turn this thing on its head of created in the image of God. God is a creator. So we are created in his image. So we are creators. AI is our creation. We've created it out of our own cleverness. The question then is, okay, we've created this. What do we do with it? How do we be good stewards of AI? And that's where this bit about dominion over all the earth comes in. Now, I have to admit that humanity has done a pretty bad job of this. We exploit natural resources. We exploit each other. We are not good stewards. And that cannot be what God meant in this passage in Genesis. Dominion is not about using the planet in any way we like. It's about nurturing and cultivating and protecting and using for the greater good of others and for the greater glory of God. So anything we create should be used to those ends. That should be true of AI. If we've created it, we should be using it for God's purposes, which sort of takes us back to AC Grayling and the problem, which is humanity has fallen. We don't get things right. We exploit the earth. We don't nurture it. We exploit each other rather than nurturing each other. So the problem here is, because of the way humans are, it's actually not a problem of general AI. We don't need to imagine general AIs to see what could go wrong here. In fact, I believe our immediate problem is not general AIs, which are in some future that may never happen. It's not those things from the Terminator movies. Our immediate concern is with those narrow AIs, those weak AIs, which we already know how to build. It's those being used by bad people to do bad things to other people. As Chesterton said, getting back to Chesterton again, the reliable machine, assuming it is reliable, always has to be worked by the unreliable human. So I'm going to conclude with one final thought. I do actually firmly believe that there is a big opportunity here for the church. The emergence of these new AI systems, it is leading people to ask anew, what does it mean to be a human? And the church has an answer to that. It's to be in relationship with God and with one another. In fact, Jesus himself was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And we all know the answer. It's love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love is at the heart of what it means to be truly human. So this development of AI and the AI all over the news is leading people to ask the question, what does it mean to be human? And we do have an answer to that question. Thank you very much.